Hello, good morning. Different spot today. I said I would choose different locations, so here I am in my first location. Where we are today is Blacklaw Wind Farm. Once upon a time, in 2006, when this place behind me was built, it was the biggest wind farm on mainland UK. And for a bit of perspective, I live about a mile and a half in that direction. Now, the purpose of the video today was I was going to attack the green agenda, the whole eco-warrior, wind turbines are great, solar farms are great. And the reason for this was because this morning I seen a piece of news, and it was about a solar farm that's been approved not too far from this location. It's about 10 or 11 miles in that direction for a solar farm, and the local council has voted to allow this. I believe it was 11 votes for and 8 against, and it really bothered me because in this local area, and I've been in this area all my life, we've had this green nonsense pushed down our throats for so long and with no benefit to the local people. I will briefly touch on the green stuff, but I'm not going down that road today. I've got stats and all sorts of information flying out my ears with regards to wind farms and wind turbines and solar farms and even the forestry. An interesting fact that I learned today was that Scotland's forests contribute over £1 billion per year to our economy. £1 billion per year to our economy, going back goodness knows how many years. I want to know where that money is going, because it's not going into the communities, it's not going into the working classes. It seems to just be made then disappear and go into the pockets of a few. And the likes of the wind farm behind me, since it was built in 2006, it has been expanded. And even though there's been expansion, and this is maintained at an exceptional cost, and it's not just manpower, they use a lot of minerals and oils that are gained through oil refinery. So you still need the fossil fuels for this shit show to operate. I get quite annoyed about the green agenda, but that's not the purpose of today. Whilst walking here today, like I say, I'm about a mile and a half from home. It actually took me an hour to get here because you're not on paths, you're not on footpaths or gravel paths, you're actually ducking under trees and climbing over trees and jumping over burns and walking through. This is wetland here, but underneath this land is tons and tons and tons of good old-fashioned coal, an industry that used to serve the area and the local communities through the workforce and things. And even as a child, about a mile from here, the pits and the coal mines were owned by local families who would then employ local people, and the wealth would be distributed locally. But even if there were to be a new open cast mine opened, that would be a Scottish Coal or something massive, and the people would never benefit, and it would just be money siphoned off here, there and everywhere. But I don't want to talk about the green shit today. But before I go into what I want to talk about, I want to thank the people that have been commenting in the posts and stuff, some local people and some people from further afield. We had people from Manchester and people from Canada, people all over. So it's nice to be a very small voice, and I'm not here to, I don't know, grow a huge YouTube channel or make money off it. I find when I make these videos and I watch them back, I have a better understanding of how I would like to engage with people that I interact with day to day. So it's more of a learning tool for me. And if I misspeak or I say something wrong, sure as shit someone in the comments is going to correct me. and then I can adjust or change my mind, because like I say, I'm open to changing my mind, and I do change it often. So I don't say whatever I've said in this video is fact and will be forever fact, or the last video is fact and will be forever fact. I'm open to stand to be corrected, and I hope to be corrected on things, because when I engage with people, like I've said previously, I want to be as truthful as I can possibly be, with as accurate information as I can be, to be an influence for good, rather than filling people's heads with nonsense and agendas. Because when you understand what's going on in your community, in your greater community, your country, etc., when you understand things, it's very difficult to be angry with things, and that's why I don't really want to go into the green stuff, because there's a lot of things that I don't understand, and I don't want to become overly emotional about it through my own fault, through lack of understanding, when I get round to speaking about this nonsense. And I might even go a 180 and change my mind and say, oh, green is wonderful, but I highly doubt it. That I can hit you with information that, as far as I know, is truthful and is accurate. But on the way up here today, I was thinking, I'm going to make this video, I'm going to tear into the greenies and all these people milking the system, and the politicians and the councillors and all the people out with, and the NGOs and all the companies that push all the shite. But as I was ducking and diving underneath the trees, and I apologise if the sound's bad, I've got my little fluffy bit on the mic today to try and cancel out some of the wind, because it is a wind farm. Ducking and diving under the trees and jumping over bogs and burns, I'm kind of marching on and wading through the grass, when about 10 metres from me, this enormous white-tailed deer flew out of the trees right past me, and it stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, wow, I wonder how many other people on a Wednesday morning have just had a big enormous whitetail bolt right across so gracefully. And it was just, for all you can throw millions into a Hollywood movie or some car or some material thing is fascinating and captivating, I'm looking at this still image in my mind of what I just seen, and I felt it was a blessing. So it lifted my spirit a bit above base level. So I'm marching, feeling good that I've just seen this deer, and I feel quite blessed and quite privileged to be able to do this sort of stuff out with my work. Going through bogs, trying to find a good spot to hang my hammock with the wind turbines in the background for the video. Then I see another deer, but it hasn't seen me yet, and it's over the side of a stone dike. That's like a stone fence for anyone that doesn't know what a dike is. And it hadn't seen me, so I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone as quietly as I could, and I reached over and I caught this deer on video. And it stopped once it jumped the fence, and it kind of looked at me, and I thought, now it's going to bolt, now it's going to run. But it looked at me like I'm nothing, which led me to start thinking about, what does this creature think when it sees me? And the truth is, it saw nothing. It wasn't curious about me. It clearly knew what a human being was, because 10 seconds later, it made its way off. Not at great haste, but enough just to avoid me, even though I'm standing waving at the thing and whistling at the thing. It wasn't interested in me. And that's what I want to get into. And between then and now, I saw a beautiful wee red fox, and it really didn't want anything to do with me. It darted and straight away up the fields like a rabbit down a hole. So it was a kind of cool trip getting here that changed what I actually wanted to speak about. What I want to talk about is us as individuals. And I heard a question recently is, who are you? And again, I ask a lot of weird questions to people, or somewhat weird questions, but my intention is to get to a point. But recently I heard the question asked in full seriousness, who are you? Now, an example of the response to this guy who was asking the question to a a guest that he was interviewing. He asked the question, who are you? And they responded, well, my name's Dave and I'm a mechanic and I live here and I do this. Then the interviewer then again asked, you've told me your name, you've told me where you're from and you've told me what you do, but you haven't told me who you are. So this conversation went on and on and on, and I follow this interviewer, and I have done for many years quite intensely, so I kind of knew where he was going with it. And after minutes of conversation, they had come to the point that this guy was actually nothing. And in 100 years, 1,000 years, your name won't be remembered. No one will remember this video. No one will remember my name, John Carroll. No one will remember what I do for work or what my opinions are on this sort of nonsense. No one will know. So the reality is, I am no one. I am nothing. But we all have something within us that is something, and that is a spirit. Now, this may switch a lot of people off. I hope it doesn't. But we don't talk about things that do last forever in day-to-day conversations. We all talk about the weather and we all talk about politics and the latest fad or the latest device or the latest pop culture, but we never talk about things that are everlong and everlasting, not the song. So the whole idea of talking about things that are spirit are things that are unifying, and they don't just unify us as a separate race. The Scots aren't unique to this, the English aren't unique to this, the British, the Africans, the Asians, whatever. Everyone in the world, I always want to go the world, but now I'm a bit the world, but that's another video. Everyone has this spirit within them, and that spirit is something that gets passed on. And an example of this is, I can look at my two sons and see behavioural traits that I have passed into them, and that's not a physical thing that you can touch, see, hear or smell. That's something completely unmeasurable. And I also have traits from my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, all the way back to time beginning. The point being, culturally we're all at war. Some Scots hate the English, some English hate the Scots, some Welsh hates the English, blah de blah de blah. The Muslims hate the Christians, the Jews hate the Christians, the Catholics hate the Protestants. This is it's all theological politics. And when you buy into someone else's ideas, and I'm all about being open-minded, but not so open-minded where you buy everything or believe everything, like a sponge that's dunked in a bucket and you let it go to absorb the water. You're not just pulling up water, you're pulling up all sorts of crap along with that. So you need to be a bit vigilant about the information and stuff that you take in and who's saying it and what their plan is. And it sounds like a complicated scheme, but to be in power, it does take a lot of complicated ideas and practices and procedures, whether it's political or theological or cultural or social or whatever. These are complicated things that most people avoid because it is easier to be distracted by pop culture. Excuse me, I'm feeling the cold. It is easy to be distracted with pop culture, intellectual stuff. I know more about history than you, or I know more about the Battle of Bannockburn than you, or World War II, or Afghan, or Iraq, and all these things. I'm sure you do, if you dedicate your time to a specific one thing, but we don't spend enough time focusing on the things that aren't pointless. I waste a lot of time on social media scrolling through reels and being amused and looking at cars and motorbikes and all sorts of fun stuff. Whereas if I had more control and a more intention to put it on useful, practical things like I hope this is, and it is the messages and the spirit of the message that I'm trying to put out. It pulls on the truth inside of the guy from Manchester, or the people in Canada, or folk in Ireland, or folk in Wales, or Germany, or wherever. We all have a spirit, and that spirit came from our lineage and ancestry, and that's why your ancestry and the history of where you are should have some sort of meaning to you. I know that to some people who have already switched off, this is gobbledygook, pointless, hippie, spiritual nonsense. I'd rather watch what the football scores were or the UFC results. But it brings, when you start to think about your ancestry and the lives that they had and the comforts that we enjoy that they didn't have, you're filled with gratitude. And when you're grateful for what you have, whether it be a lot or a modest life, you want to kind of be in harmony with the people around about you and people from different cultures and things. And one of the questions that was asked on the comment, wonder if that's the same crow, noisy. One of the questions that was asked on the not the Facebook comments, but the YouTube comments last week was, what is my views on multiculturalism, or have they changed, or something to that effect? They do change, and they often change. Once upon a time I was like, Scotland, this is our land, nobody else. Long time ago. Then it changed to everybody should come here, and there should be no restrictions, no passports, all this stuff. But it's not until you have a family and you start to look into more deeper and meaningful thoughts that you start to kind of calm down a little, become a bit dispassionate about it all, so you can think clearly and have a better understanding of why you think how you think, or feel how you feel. If you look at today, we have cultural clashes in the UK and the West, with people from different ethnicities, different religions, different backgrounds, different cultures and things. But what people that come to my home country and the extension of my home country, the UK, need to realise that we are rich in history and rich in culture. And if we don't check what is clearly happening at the moment with immigration and things like this, then that culture could be diluted, not diluted, the history will never go away, but it could be forgotten. And when you forget that history, you don't care about the environment, you don't care about shoving up rubbish like behind me wherever you feel fit, or solar farms wherever you feel fit, or basically preserving and keeping the memory of this. The whole countryside and a lot of rural Scotland and the cities with the architecture and stuff is a testament and is a living memory of our culture and our history. And if that becomes under attack, you must, as a non-Indigenous person, appreciate that there's people that hold this dear to their heart, and that they will not allow it to be abused or dismissed or undervalued. When you want to come to our country and change it to something less than, that is not acceptable. For example, if I moved to a country, Dubai, and I said, in Scotland, I eat haggis from a pig's stomach, I do this, I go to church, and I have these cultural practices that I do, and you must adhere to me, or else I'm going to march on the street, I'm going to cause a nuisance, I'm going to be disorderly. I think I would last 5 minutes before I was either rightfully deported or put in jail as a threat to their culture. And we must, and that's not wrong. We could learn from the examples out in the Middle East of how they preserve and how they keep the peace. And not all the Middle East, I'm not talking about Baghdad or Afghanistan, I'm talking about the upcoming new world, the Dubais and the Qatars and these places where there is law and there is order. And one thing that really boggles my mind that I will look into is they do this with very minimal tax burden on, if any, tax burden on the citizens of these places. Whereas here in the UK, we are taxed on our wage, we're taxed on what we buy, we're taxed on what we save, we're taxed on what we inherit. Tax, 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 and there is nothing in return. Even, for example, this wind farm, the road between my village and the next village is like driving on the moon due to the amount of heavy lorries and cranes and all the abuse that road has taken due to this place. And it's at my expense when I need to get new shock absorbers on the car or put new wheels on it because I've hit a pothole and they've cracked. That is at my expense. Now, you could try and go through the council, you could try, but the effort in order to do that and keep on top of life and enjoy life, it's not worth the hassle. This all comes through poor leadership. This all comes through, and I don't want to say capitalism because I do value capitalism, but limited capitalism. Like I say, I am National Socialist. And what that means, and people, when they hear National Socialist and they hear the term Nazi, they all of a sudden think of, you know what you're thinking, burning bodies and gassing people and all that sort of stuff. It's a political idea. And that idea is simply reduced to nationalist, the nation, and what is best for the nation. Are we, for example, importing things from other nations that we could get the resources from our own land? That's what a nationalist would think like, in the sense that we import hundreds of millions of tons of coal into the United Kingdom, when right now I'm sitting on top of hundreds of millions of tons of coal with no local jobs for the community. And I just think that's an insane proposal, and some leader has signed this off as a good idea. And for this week, when hypothetically we get in charge as National Socialists, I would like to see the person who signs that off, the guy who says yes, import coal to the UK, he gets 10 years in the work camp. Last week, I'm sure it was whoever was in charge of the roads in 25. They have 10 years in the work camp. But this week, it's going to be the guy who's signed off on the importing coal. 10 years in the work camp for you when the time comes. And socialist means it benefits the society. The society is benefiting from the political decisions and the industrial decisions through jobs, cheaper electricity, but now we have more expensive electricity than ever, more expensive fuel. Scotland is an oil and coal-rich and mineral-rich country, yet we have some of the highest prices when it comes to fuel, petrol, diesel, electricity and things like that. It makes no sense to me. So this democracy, or this society in which we are living, is clearly failing and it must change. And I don't want to speak about politicians as individuals, but the leaders that we are presented with today don't seem to be addressing the things that would benefit us nationally or socially. So all I wanted to talk about today was that, and it was quite brief and it was quite quick, and I hadn't planned on speaking about, think about who you are today and why you became that way and where that spirit that lives in you came from. I said to a chap the other day I was speaking to, imagine we could go back 200 years in a time machine, hypothetically, sci-fi, and we could speak to your great-great-great-great-grandmother, and she could spend some time with you, and I'm pretty certain that she would say that he had traits that his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather had, because it passes down and passes down and passes down and passes down. And our number one mission as we live as a human physical being is to be better examples to our children than our parents were to us, to create better and better and better and better for the future. We must not think of ourselves as individual. We are nothing, but we are part of a greater whole, and that's a spiritual whole. And we need to better that spirit and move it further away from evil and greed and bitterness and envy and anger and rage and intolerance and move it towards understanding and peace and a loving nature and consideration for others other than yourself. So that's where I'll leave it today. A bit of a ramble today because I was hoping to go a bit further afield, but I was of the understanding the weather was to be a lot worse than it was, so I thought I'll just go a wee stoat up the woods and talk about the turbines and all the green shit, and even that plan got bombed out the window. So wherever you are watching from, and again, thanks to everyone who's commented. I do love engagement. I want to engage with people. I want people to put me onto people with different ideas or other trains of thought, just so I can get better understanding. So everyone who engages and who subscribes and who comments, I appreciate it. I really, really do. If there was no one watching, there would be no point in doing it. I'd be as well recording myself and watching the videos back. But when people get involved, the greater community, which I'm part of, and hopefully starting to connect with these people, and hopefully they connect with me through comments or whatever, that would be much appreciated. So as always, thank you very much. God bless. Down the middle as always. Take care. Bye-bye.